7 blind young.
Welcome. As you are welcome here. Visitor or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children or your partner or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a pulse or not, energy or not, seeking a vision or rest. You are welcome as you are. That we are in stories of Blackfeet and Anishinaabe people who shared the valley as hunting grounds. The story of Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We ask that they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. Karen McLean, and I serve as liaison for this particular worship service today, BSUU. And I asked Mr. Cliff Stevens to service today, and so he is our I met Cliff through his association with the Helena Interfaith Climate Advocates that recently formed about a year ago. My husband was part of that. Ken McLean is my husband. Anyway, this is a group of people representing different faiths in Helena. And there's all kinds of them. And represents the Baha'i faith on Hika. And he is here to share some of his perspectives, which are related to that. All right, we are lighting the chalice. All right, we shall say together, we gather this hour as people of faith in sorrow and need. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. And now Judy's going to lead us in the oneness of everything in our Singing the Journey, aqua, sea blue color. It's number 10. Feel free to stand as you are able. you, Judy, for leading that. Okay, now we have joys and concerns. There will be a time to share private joys and concerns after the streaming is done later in the service. Anyone? Yes. Jen.
I'm just going to share. I live on the west end of Helena, and I drive down Hauser, and it's a beautiful canopy of beautiful trees the whole way. It gave me lots of joy this morning as I drove to church.
I'd like to thank all who planned and gathered this afternoon on the campus.
On that same subject, I have never been to a more well-organized rally, and it was in support of Measure 128 to guarantee abortion care. And there were 4 speakers. Every one of them was concise. And sometimes you go to those rallies, they're standing. It was added to by Judy and Wilbur providing the music. So it was a nice turnout. Now if we win.
Others? Okay. Those unspoken joys and concerns we also hold in our hearts. Now, I should have this thing memorized. The offering, and I understand there's 2 that volunteered to do the plates. Thank you both. Now, we at the towards the end of the prelude that Cheryl will, we're going to do thank you for your loving hands, and that happens to be at page 25 in your heart songbook.
The reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, entitled Spiritual Knowledge. Knowest thou the world declining virtue and righteousness, and vice and injustice mount the throne? I, the Lord, visit my world and mingleth as a man with men, and by my influence and teaching do I destroy the evil, justice, establish righteousness. Have I thus appeared? Many times after shall
Now we have the story for all ages, and
7 blind mice. Young.
keep seated. This is for
7 Blind Mice by Ed Young. One day, 7 blind mice were surprised to find a strange something by their pond. "What is it?" they cried, and they all ran home. On Monday, Red Mouse went to find out. "It's a pillar." No one believed him. On Tuesday, Green Mouse, he was the second to go. "It's a snake," he said. "No," said Yellow Mouse on Wednesday. "It's a spear." He was the third in turn. The fourth was Purple Mouse. He went on Thursday. "It's a great cliff," he said. Orange Mouse went on Friday, the fifth to go. "It's a fan," he cried. "I felt it move." The sixth to go was Blue Mouse. He went on Saturday and said, "It's nothing but a rope." But the others didn't agree. They began to argue. A snake, a rope, a fan, a cliff, until on Sunday, White Mouse, the seventh mouse, went to the pond. When she came upon the something, she ran up one side and she ran down the other. She ran across the top and from end to end. "Ah," said White Mouse, "now I see. The something is as sturdy as a pillar, supple as a snake, wide as a cliff, sharp as a spear, breezy as a fan, stringy as a rope. But rather, the something is an elephant." And when the other mice ran up one side and down the other, across the something, end to end, they agreed. Now they saw too. The mouse moral: knowing in part may make a fine tale, but wisdom comes from seeing the whole. The end.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Cliff Stevens. It's a pleasure to be with you and share some perspectives from my faith community on the subject of the unity, the oneness of religion, which I think is into what I read, what I know about the Unitarian Universalists. But before I start, that is independent investigation of truth, which is a principle of ours. Means that I must respect everyone's autonomy. My share of religion, not to manipulate anyone or sell something. In fact, I was going to that was a little too much like marketing, so I'd have to put up graphs, chart. Might turn a lot of people off. I don't know. But anyway, I have some important perspectives that might help you understand some of the things that I'm going to say. And one is that religion is organic. It grows. It didn't drop out of the sky as one particular thing. It came as a seed, as Krishna said. And by its influence, it grew and spread. So the history will testify to the truth. And religions also have seasons, being organic. Spring, a winter, and then they are renewed by the Lord coming again, as Krishna said. So in spring they blossom, in summer the fruit ripens, in fall it's harvested, and in winter it dies. And so when you think about a religion, if you go look at it in its springtime, it's a beautiful thing. Go look at it in its for everyone. Another one, last one, is when religion is, it's a new spiritual, and all religions and all feel the new spiritual import and begin to reflect many of the principles in the growth of the religion. One God and the oneness or unity of God is a belief of Unitarians and Baha'is. I know Unitarian Universal welcomes people from all faiths, including interfaith families, and celebrates the diversity of their beliefs. We have, I think, a unique diversity, namely that the religions of mankind are in reality one that has been revealed. You might wonder, how did we get this way? Why do we even need unity of religion? Look back at our history. You didn't have any choice what your religion was going to be. Where you were born, that was your religion. There wasn't any point. If you were in Greece, back before Christ, worship, at one religion did that. Nowadays, it's not that way. The world has changed, and every community has now, maybe not so much here in Montana, but even in Oklahoma, where I came from, there was plenty. In Portland, where I grew up, one house away from the United Methodist Church, that church is now a Buddhist peace temple. It was great to go back and see it. I enjoyed it, and I wish I could have been there to be a service. It looked like it was either Thai or Cambodian writing on the wall to figure out what they were doing. And to change it, when other religions began to be translated and printed and made, Charles Wilkins first translated Bhagavad Gita in 1753. And it amounted to a paradigm shift in the intellectual history of Western knowledge. Collect If anybody finds an older version of the Bhagavad Gita, let me know. Anyway, the Quran translated. George Saleh, and I have his Quran over there if anybody wants to look at it. It was a disaster when I found it, so I've had it rebound. So it looks like a new book, but it's not. It's from 1873, and that's the 6th edition. So even Thomas Jefferson owned a copy of Saleh's translation of the. It's in the Library of Congress now. In 1871, James Freeman Clark published an essay. Clark was a nationally known Unitarian minister, and this book went through more than 30 editions between in a variety of. This led people, especially early of Unitarianism, such as the Transcendentalists, Emerson. If you're familiar with Henry David, one of my favorite books is Walden Pond, and I've read it many times. Henry David Thoreau borrowed Emerson's copy of Bhagavad Gita because, of course, he didn't have any money, and borrowed this, took it to Walden Pond with him, and read from it every morning. And many of the first yogi. Interesting. Don't know about him. You should read about him. But James Freeman's book, 10 Religions, the books I want to find. 10 Great Religions. He wrote about kind of an experiment back then. I don't know. Anyway, trend continued, gained momentum, and in 1893, on 11 September, there opened in Chicago, in conjunction with the World's Fair, the first Parliament of Religions, it was called. And I have a souvenir page from 1893 who was there. Representatives of Buddhism came over from India and came from all around to be at this parliament. It is recognized as the first interfaith meeting and the birth of the worldwide interfaith movement. If you look on Wikipedia, a handful of books, you can go to Wikipedia and look at a list of spiritual texts, and there'll be 25 pages tightly spaced with blue links underlined. Click on any one you want there, and it goes anywhere from ancient Egyptian text to Wicca, and everything in between. I've got the first 2 pages if you want to get a feel for that. But that's one of the ways the world has changed in the last 150 to any that has ever been part of mankind has been studied, translated, available to everyone who wants it. You can go on the internet, look at any religious text that's ever been written, and see what they were thinking. Translation. Translations of the Bible aren't very good, Anyway, so that brings me to of comparative religion in this area, and you'll see where an author or a documentary will try and compare. And the traditional approach, has pretty much failed to change the prevalent attitude of exclusivity, skepticism about religion, and not to bring about lasting harmony understanding among the various religions, which, in my mind, I believe that a new approach based on the perspective of progressive is required. And this principle regards the as unified in content, but progressive in context. And what this means is that the spiritual all of these religions, and I have a that has the golden rules on it expressed in the language of other faiths. This has been there, we know, religion. But teachings are also historical and a cultural context. You can't really, the Bible, you can't really understand without knowing something about Judaism. It makes sense if you don't. But anyway, so you have the context that you have to consider. Teaching, you pray, how you worship, how you interact, and pray, and your practices that are recommended to you. They might look very different. This process has educated man on the superiority or limitations of the teacher, needs and the capacities of the pupils. That's us. That's why many of these teachers look so different. They were talking to different thought with these things. The first one, I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to think of the picture that pops into your head when I say this word. Ocean. So everybody thought of what that word means to them, and maybe came up with the coast of Maine, the rock-bound coast of Maine with the lighthouses. Not a that you'd want to jump into because it would pound you on the rocks right there, and you wouldn't like it. And that happened to many sailors. I thought of the Caribbean. I've lived in Alaska, where people would have thought ice cap, Arctic Ocean. I've lived in Australia, where they would have thought of maybe the Great Coral Reef. That everybody will come up with a little bit different picture of what ocean is. And talk to people, you just can't say ocean. You got to say, what ocean are you talking about? Is it the Atlantic? And the people of Greenland, Hawaii, would see ocean. They have done this. If you take a person from the north and bring them down to the Caribbean and have them look around, idea. They won't like that. Where's the ice? How are you going to get around? Where are you going to hunt? That kind of stuff. They would not be too happy with that. So, but now as we study, go back into space, look down, we see these oceans are connected. They're all one big blue planet. And there is a network of currents called the Great Conveyor. The Great Oceanic Conveyor, sometimes the thermal haline distributor, sometimes, just whatever. This circulates the water through all of the oceans. And one of water, thousands of years, but it will circuit. And I kind of see the oceans as sometime, and this great current as the Holy Spirit, which moves through all of these religions. Something to think about, like any analogy, you can't take it too far. But if you've had experiences with different oceans, it's like experiences with different religions. You go to a different religion, maybe a Dharma center, Hindu temple, Muslims, and all of that. It's kind of like being on a ocean, and you just, you're maybe a little bit out. There's another thought experiment that I wanted to, and to start with, we're going to just envision this candle here, this light. It would burn brighter for this experiment, but anyway, this will represent the divine light. And over there on that display, imagine that's a mirror. I'll just go with 2. We could have hundreds of mirrors, but we'll just go with 2. And they are such that if I look down to this light, stand behind this light and look at the mirror, I'll see the light reflected back at me. And if I stand here and I look at that one, behind it, I'll see the light reflected in that mirror also. Just for argument's sake, let's say that mirror is Jesus. Now let's say this is Buddha. And at the foot of each mirror are the followers of Jesus and the followers of Buddha. The mirror has a frame. Might be very white, it might be golden. But that's the cultural context. The mirror is the truth that stand before this mirror, straight into it, you'll see the light reflected in that mirror. But if you're standing in front of the mirror and you look over at this one, you'll say, I don't see any light in that one, because the angle is wrong. If you want the light in that mirror, you got to go stand in front of it and look into it. And if you do, you will see the light in that mirror also. The frame is a cultural context, completely different. You might go, I don't think bamboo is a very good frame, or that frame's way, the Catholics, all they're ornate. If you've ever been to Italy for a while, you'll know that we're very big on altars and all of this, and that might look a little too to you. The important part is the light is seen in Jesus, in Buddha, as the light of God or the Holy Spirit in the mirror. Now the problem is you got your mirror. Everybody knows what'll happen to a mirror if you leave it alone, covered with dust. Eventually looking at it anymore. It's what we're doing. We don't need to anymore. Has to be cleaned. It's cleaned with love. It's cleaned with dedication. Sometimes obedience. Something to think about. Thousands in the world today, or through our history, I should say, many of these religions don't exist anymore. But it's obvious from reading many of the scriptures that the light of the in them, and the people who worship them, who, as Krishna said, influenced by them, managed to reach societies in a better way many times. But then again, that was a new spring, and winter came. And unfortunately, winter is not a great time to be looking for or to be a religious. Anyway, I thought I'd come full circle with my story that I found for Karen, the nice. Anybody ever heard that story before? Anybody? Very old story. It goes back to ancient India, retold in various religious traditions, everything, Hinduism, Buddhism, you name it. Around the time and the Parliament of Religion was going on, and we were translating some of the great texts. In the 19th century, there was a poem written. Talk about some of the others, but I thought I'd go with pop a bit. So this poem, although it was written in same story, and just out of curiosity, we'll see if anybody's heard it before. It's a short poem. Men of inclined, see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. So theologic wars, disputants, I ween, rail on in what each means. About an elephant, not one of them has seen. Very popular. Learned to love poetry when I was in high school. Does anybody know who Natalie Merchant is? 10,000 Maniacs. Singer and lyricist for 10,000 Maniacs albums, and had those albums to sing it. So if you go, I think it's an album, a solo album, you'll find that poem on that album. So it's funny how pop culture comes around. Now that is the end of my talk. Just last conclusion. Maybe I'll just read what I wrote. So much for allowing me to your Sunday service. I hope these observations have been enlightening or inspiring in some way, and I invite you to explore and find things of great price contained within them. I'd like to close with a quote from Gandhi. Like the bee gathering honey from the different flowers, the wise person accepts the essence of is only the good in all religions. It's now time for our moment of reflection.
Cliff, that was really very well sequenced, that I felt like I follow your thinking, and it's a really great to explain the diversity of religion, time, and place. So because I think one of the things I struggle most with, I love your suggestion that we see good in the different religions. I do a lot of bad that I think in religion when it comes to the phenomenon of patriarchy, misogyny, and, the war against women that we're experiencing now. So would you place that phenomenon is that part of the context that I mean, I know that there are teachings in some of those religions that are oppressively patriarchal. Is that bad, oppressive stuff? How's that fit in? I struggle with that.
Why don't you answer mine? Because everybody needs to hear your answer.
Many of our cultures indeed are patriarchal. We see things in the animal world out of which we evolved. But I'll share with you one thing that listen to the sermons. And one preacher, his sermon about how the world is 4,000 years old. Years were time women, and of those times many times show the life, the woman being the educator of life. The second 2,000 years were patriarchal, and unfortunately, and Bear and others said, but we are approaching an age where there will be the combination of them, and the patriarchy, as a result of favoring one woman at one wing and another, and this will be a thing of the past. Any other systems have become things of the past. Unfortunately, they're well-grained in society, and rooting them, a reasonable argument. There won't be over. I'll just share with you one. Women will be the primary. That's and we're beginning to see that. We may have a woman president, and this time many other countries have women presidents. And so I think we're beginning happening things to change overnight. Way to go. Consider America. Consider Africa and the other parts of the country, other parts of the world. And love and education, we will see things change. 74, and I've seen the change in race relations. Maybe some of the that yet. There'd be more of it. But people are coming along, and there's a lot of fear. This is the religion. So the winter is still there. There's beginning new growth, plants coming forth. Will be fruit, and harvest in that early spring, where the sun is still on the ground. That's why faith is so important. You must have the faith that this will happen, and that you can participate in it. And I hope you're right. You too.
We have time for maybe one or two more
Just a note, I checked here, and 10 Great Religions is available on.
It's about 100 years old.
Oh, well, this would be newer than that, presumably, but $9 paperback, $40 in hardcover.
Got a feeling of the high faith.
All right. No, but seriously, on your topic, I've always been feeling that religion evolves. People trying to explain the unexplainable. You know, what is thunder? That's retribution from God, or it's somebody rattling his sword, or Thor rattling his sword. And gradually, these accumulated hardware, you know, but there's still movement toward truth. It's like Martin Luther King said, history is long.
One more.
I hope your belief that we are in spring is true, but it seems to me that at the history that are definitely, and for all over in America and the rise of Christian nationalists and the hatred of other, against every really causing problems that I but not now.
Pretty much the same. I might point, one of my favorite authors is Karen Armstrong, and in her book, The History of the Battle of God. But those two especially show that when we transition in this spring, it's religions are to their founder. That's not the problem. The problem is now covered with dust, cobwebs. Maybe they've thrown a cloak over it of nationalism, or see the light on that, even if they look straight into it, and that's a problem. But so there's a atheism in the Old Testament. This period, the birth of Messiah. This is what the world is like when, as Krishna said, injustice mounts the throne, intolerance rules supreme. All of these have occurred of this period of winter, and it takes, shiny. It's like I said, it's the word as a religion. It's so sad to see what has become of these religions, if you know the history of them, and you know how they operate in time, the sacrifices that they made, the lives that they lived. Although they didn't have all the luxuries that they had, and I'll talk about that sometime, but bad time. You have the news of equality of men and women that were planted in the 19th century. We have made progress that the people expect. How they fought for the equality of men and women, for the vote, for all of these things. But the forward to this, when we're going to see the creation of mankind and the implementation of these great finally in our adulthood, they longed to be here. If you read the prophets of the Old Testament, how they looked forward, you can read the prophecies of this coming time in any religion. Something from about what the new world would be like before their world was destroyed, and they knew it was coming, but there was what would it be? That gives you some hope, and this is not a time to lose hope. This is the time to light a candle.
So Judy's going to lead us in, it's on page 20, Out of Your Heart. Oh, you know we are one. Oh, I mistyped that. 7. No, I misread it. No glasses. The wrong spot. Okay, here we go.
Christian, Muslim, and Jew, we just come separate. More fun, and oh, you know we are one. Oh, we are one. Oh, you know we are one. We just come separate 'cause black, white, and tan, we just come for fun from end to end. And oh, you know we are one. Oh, you know one. Just come separate, 'cause that's more fun. Coyote, leopard, and whale, we just more fun. Sunflower, crabgrass, willow, and 'cause that's and oh, you know we are one. Oh, you know we are one. Oh, you know we are one. We just separate. Why? 'Cause that's more fun.
I'm going to extinguish this, but not